Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another great episode of the Five Star Revolution Podcast, the one and only official Five Star Revolution Podcast. Share our Facebook page for your chance to win a free $200 Visa gift card. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Five Star Revolution Podcast. Tonight, we have a very special guest. He is the Punisher, Don Vega. How you doing tonight, sir?
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Thank you for joining me tonight. I know you're a busy guy. I know you're at the wrestling school right now, but I appreciate your time. And my first question for you is, how did you get your start into this crazy world of professional wrestling?
Well, for me, it's like cliche, like everybody says, they watched it growing up and stuff like that. For me, it was the same. I'm originally from Jersey. I was born in New Jersey. My parents relocated to Puerto Rico when I was about the age of 4. And when I relocated to Puerto Rico, I used to watch wrestling with my grandfather. My grandfather was a huge wrestling fan, and we used to watch back then. What is called now the World Wrestling Council, WWC. It was Capital Sports Promotion, and that was like Carlos Colon, the Invaders, and a host of names from the U.S. that used to go down there in Japan. And I just fell in love with wrestling as a whole. I can't tell you, I watched one match and that match made me fall in love with the business. I just fell in love with wrestling in general.
So, who was your favorite wrestler growing up?
Growing up, I had many. The fellow Puerto Rican wrestlers. I love Carlos Colon. I watch. I was actually a fan on the download of some of the heels because my grandfather obviously he cheered for the good guys. Chicky Star was another one that I used to watch, and of course I watched a lot of the guys that used to come down there from the states, like guys like Terry and Dory Funk, Harley Race. I mean, you name it. Puerto Rico had some of the best top guys from territories back in the 80s.
When did you initially start training, and who was your trainer?
Well, fast forward to like 1996, I moved back to the States, to the Rhode Island area, Massachusetts, Rhode Island area. Here I started watching for the first time. I discovered indie wrestling, and there was this group called the NEWA in Rhode Island, based out of Rhode Island. At the time, I was like 15 years old. So to make the story short, I ended up going to the shows, following up with those guys, and eventually got the opportunity to like set up the ring and help out before shows, and that's how I got my foot in the door to start training there. There, I had a mix of guys that were helping me out, but when I first started, it was a mix of guys. Then later down the line, I moved over to what was Yankee Pro Wrestling, based out of Massachusetts, and there I trained with a guy by the name of Brickhouse Baker, Mike Baker, and he was one of my trainers there.
And do you remember your first match? If so, what do you remember from that match?
My first actual match, you'll probably get a laugh, was against two midgets, and their names were the Low Blow Brothers as a tag team, and it was Tiny the Terrible and Half Nelson. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Tiny was very popular in like the New England area. He was actually on Dark Side of the Ring in the New Jack episode. So those two guys that were brothers were my opponents in my first match ever, and I remember I was just nervous, man. I was still a kid. I was about 15 years old. So
Wow, so you've been doing this for a while now.
yeah, yeah, quite some time. Yeah.
So, if you had one thing that you can change about professional wrestling, what would that be?
For me, the 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 mystery and that magic that wrestling once had. The tricks of the trade not being so overly exposed. Saving that mystique, that mystery that you get when you go to a movie without not knowing what the ending might be, or that type of feel that we're missing from pro wrestling right now, which makes people have that connection with wrestling. And I think that's a big part that's missing now.
I totally agree, man. I believe that the dirt sheets have a lot to do with that. They ruin a lot of stuff, like all those rumors and stuff like that. It ruins wrestling, but
Hmm.
what can you do, you know?
Yeah, time goes on and it changes, so you gotta adjust with times. But I do miss certain things from back in the day. I wish that it would still be like that to this day.
So, for those fans who don't know who Don Vega is or the character Don Vega, do you mind explaining what you're about?
Well, Don Vega, the nickname the Punisher came along from my boxing days. Like as a kid, I was also a fan of boxing. And the closest thing that, in my mind, I would have to wrestling was boxing. So I made my dad sign me up for boxing classes. And I started training in Puerto Rico. Then when I moved out here, I started boxing out of a club in Rhode Island, which I boxed for about 4 years. And one of my coaches, one of my trainers there, he used to be like, "Oh, punish the bag," and that stuck with me. And with the movies and the cartoon, The Punisher and stuff like that, that's how I got that nickname. The Don Vega thing came later, a lot later, because first I was just the Punisher. A lot later down the line, I started working for this promoter by the name of Tony Rumble. He ran the NWA New England up in Massachusetts, and working for him, a little while after working for him, he said, we're gonna start doing some things with you, kid, but you have to have a real name. So he's like, to me, you kind of look like D'Lo Brown and Savio Vega. So, that's where Don Vega came along. He's like, I got a name for you. You're going to be Don the Punisher Vega. And this is, I believe, the middle of 1999. And ever since then, I kept the name and I just roll with it.
Have you been backstage at WWE, TNA, or AEW? If so, what'd you learn from the experience?
Yes, WWE. I've actually worked for WWE many, many occasions. I've gotten tryouts since like 2007. I've been involved doing enhancement work for WWE. I mean, you look at different stuff. I've been a security guard. I've been a freaking paramedic. I've been a fan staged in the audience. I mean, you you name it. I've probably done it there. I mean, for me, it's a surreal experience because I grew up watching and I love wrestling and the production side of what the WWE is and even TNA back then. I had a couple opportunities to be down at TNA. Uh, it's just larger than life, but WWE, man, that's a beast. You wouldn't expect the type of production and the crew. I mean, hundreds of people. I mean, catering. I mean, it's crazy, man. It's just insane the way they able to do this every week. On a weekly basis.
So, when you do your tryout matches for WWE, what are the feedback that you get backstage?
My feedbacks have been positive. In the beginning, you go there, I remember going there the first time. My first time going to WWE was actually at the Garden in New York.
Wow.
So I was freaking out, man. I was nervous. But then as you go more and more times, you feel comfortable. And, every time, whether it was my timing that I needed work in the ring, or whether I needed to get in better shape, or whether I needed to change my character a bit, I've always tried to improve and take it as a learning tool and go back better. But the wrestling business there's no guarantees in the wrestling business. It's a difficult business. And whether you're the best guy, you're not guaranteed that you're gonna get a shot and that you're gonna get a contract. And that's unfortunately for me. If if at the time that I've been up there, they were looking for a straight up dude, Puerto Rican dude, that's the real deal, could speak Spanish, the real deal Hispanic, then I would have gotten a job at that time. But you know, uh, unfortunately, at that time, that's not what they were looking for. And after a while, I've always kept it real with myself. So I knew that, and I just took the opportunities and ran with them, and I was blessed having the opportunities that I've gotten over the last couple of years.
Hey man, not a lot of people can say that they're a part of WWE, so I'll give you respect for that one.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
So would you say that as a wrestler, you would have to make a lot of sacrifices in life to be successful in this business?
Definitely, man. Back, I remember, like I said, I started in '96. And I remember missing out a lot of childhood moments, hanging out with family and friends and gatherings, weddings. I remember my brother got married, and I think I was at the wedding reception for like half hour because I had a show that night. I had to run out of there to go to the show. It's a lot different than what it is now, but back then you definitely were missing out on birthdays, and you were missing out on hanging out with girlfriends and all that type of stuff. Nowadays guys have excuses. Oh, I'm not going to show up because it's my birthday. I'm not going to show up because maybe I got a headache or whatever. It was different. It was different back then. Yeah.
So what can we expect out of Don Vega in the next 3 years?
Next 3 years, man. Right now, I'm really interested in the production side of pro wrestling. I'm working with a group out here in Rhode Island called Showcase Pro Wrestling, and I've been their booker and part of the production for a number of years now. And I'm trying to get my feet wet in that department so that when I make the transition from active wrestler, go on to that role. So that's my future plan.
So what do you like to embody? Being a wrestler, being a booker, and why?
The booking aspect, I think, is because when my role in the ring is done, as a booker and somebody that has creative input, you still out there because if he helps others to like be successful and put something together like your baby, you know what I mean, like somebody's like carrying your baby and you see it grow. I mean, I guess you can live vicariously through the people that you're helping outgrow, so it keeps you in there without you physically being in there, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's one of the parts that I really like about it.
If there's one thing you can say to somebody that's want us to get into the business, what's one piece of advice you would give that person?
Consistency. Be consistent. Like I said, there's a lot of excuses. A lot of people want to be wrestlers, uh, but they don't have that drive, that consistency, that dedication that you need in order to be successful. I mean, regardless, for me, regardless of whether I got a big contract or not, I've been doing this for 25 years. I enjoyed every single moment of it. Like I said, I've had some cool experiences. I mean, going back to Puerto Rico and wrestling in Puerto Rico was one of my major goals that I accomplished. So, just be consistent because you're gonna hear a lot of no's in this business. But I always tell guys, you only need one yes to come in the door, and you got to be ready when that door opens.
So what do you think it takes to make it to big time?
Uh, Now I think uh, talent, but it's who you know, right time, right place, in a lot of situations. So you want to be ready. You want to have that physical ability, the appearance, the look, whatnot, but also right time, right place. Because a lot of the guys that have gotten a job, it's been right time, right place, and they've been looking for that particular person, and it's worked out for them.
I know you've been on for 25, as you said. I know you have role stories. Mind sharing some?
Real stories, man. I used to work. I work for this promoter down here. His name and guys that will see this interview from the area are definitely gonna know this person. Mike Spotter is his name, and he's one of the craziest cats that I've ever worked for, and some of the most funnest memories that I've had for working with that guy. Actually, I'll tell you a story. It's not an actual real story, but it's a story that happened at a show. Uh, this show he had Rikishi booked on. And Kishi, I guess, was nursing an injury. It was like Friday and Saturday. Friday night he worked a short match. Saturday night show, we were in a different town, and Kishi was nowhere to be found at that point in time. So the promoter's calling him. He's not answering the phone. Me and the promoter were tight, so he was coming back to me, telling me all these things. Finally, Kishi gets on the phone, and he's like, "I'm gonna show up to the show. I need another $2,500, but I'm not gonna wrestle because I have a bad ankle. I'm just gonna sign autographs." So the promoter tells him, "Yeah, you could come to the show. You can sign your autographs, but I'm not giving you any more money." So Kishi proceeds to tell him that he's gonna drive up to the show and beat his ass and shut the show down. So in a wrestling locker room when there's drama, the boys are like the biggest fans, and everybody was waiting for that moment. So mind you, I think I was on third that night. My match was third, and I was working. Actually, was gonna work Mike Bennett that night. We were on deck. When the second match was on, all of a sudden there's a big roar from the audience. Kishi came in through the front door, yelling, "I'm here to kick the promoter's ass." So now this guy, like I said, he was a crazy one. He freaking rushed, and I never seen him run so fast. Goes underneath the ring and grabs a big wrench from under the ring. Now he's trying to go at Kishi. Kishi's trying to go to him. There's boys from the back coming out trying to separate it. The model of the story is promoter got in the mic. He proceeded to cut this long promo about Kishi wanting to steal the money and all this crap and whatnot. And it was just crazy, man. It ended up with the promoter getting dragged back to the locker room. And the thing that's the funniest about this is that back in the day, we used to have these clinics, like WWE tryout clinics that, whoever was in charge of talent relations at the time would come in and look at the guys. So that weekend was one of those, and we had Mike Bucci. You know who Mike is? Nova.
Yeah.
Yes, Nova was down there looking at some guys, and we had like a tryout seminar earlier in the night. And people from all over came. There was like over 40 guys in the locker room that night. There was this one kid with a ninja gimmick, and he had an actual katana at the time that was laying around in the locker room. So when the promoter got dragged back, he ended up finding that thing, grabbing it, and running it again towards the crowd, and people started scattering. Man, it was fucking crazy. It was crazy.
So did Rikishi get his money?
Uh, I don't think so, man. I think I think Mike held his ground. He held his ground that night.
So how do you balance life with professional wrestling?
Like I said, is back then when I was wrestling a lot and like getting out a lot to different places, it was hard because you try to get your name out there. You don't see family sometimes. You don't hang out with friends or whatnot. So it's a sacrifice. Like I said, if you really want to make it and give yourself a shot, at least at getting looked at, there's some certain things that you're gonna have to sacrifice, and it's just part of the game. So that's my piece of advice for anyone looking to do this: is you're gonna have to make some sacrifices.
So in all of your career, what's the longest drive you've done?
What was that again, brother? I couldn't hear
What's the
you.
longest drive you've done?
Drives, the longest drive from Rhode Island probably to Florida is
Wow.
like a 21-hour drive. Yeah, it's
Wow.
been some long road trips.
So when you go on those road trips and there's like 20, 30 people in the crowd when you get there, are you disappointed? And how do you perform on those shows?
With me, I was always told that whether there's five or 1,000 people, you have to give them your all because those five people, you don't know who's sitting in the crowd, and those five people paid to see you. So, it sucks because we get our drive from the energy of the audience, but I still go out there and try to give it 100%, man. Whether there's, like I said, five or thousands of people, I try to go out there and give them a show because they paid to see a show. it just sucks as a performer to not have, the type of crowd that is roaring and jam packed. But regardless, as pros, you have to go out there and give the people their money's worth.
So how do you deal with those promoters that have heat with each other and they tell you not to wrestle for a certain show? What do you say
We
to
used
them?
to, we used to have that a lot back when I was breaking in. Uh, Certainly, there wasn't that many promotions like they are now. Like you go to a state and they have 10 promotions. Uh, seven of them which shouldn't be running. But yeah, they used to tell you, oh, if you work for me, you can't go to the next guy. And for me, as a young Don Vega, I probably regret listening to some of these people and not going out more. So obviously you don't want to burn bridges, but sometimes you got to make the right calls for yourself. If you know what I'm trying to say, you have to
Yeah, you gotta
follow
be
your gut.
selfish a little bit.
Yeah, you have to be selfish and look out for yourself, because in pro wrestling, there's not that many people that are gonna look out for you.
I totally agree with that, man. I used to be a wrestler myself, back in the day. Didn't make it big time, didn't make it anywhere big, but I know what you're talking about. There used to
Yeah,
be promoters head to head and be like, "No, you can't wrestle for him. You can't." I don't have a contract. I wrestle wherever I want.
yeah. You're an independent contractor basically, and even the funny thing is, even when you're at a big company like the WWE, you're still an independent contractor. But Vince has managed to sneak that around that for his convenience. You can't go anywhere else.
Right, and then when you get released, you can't wrestle for 90 days.
Yeah, yeah.
But my next question for you is rather face or a heel? What's your favorite thing to do and why?
Heel's always been my passion, just because I have that look of a guy that's not too friendly sometimes. So being a heel comes easy to me, comes natural. But I've also enjoyed being a babyface, and I've gotten away with being a babyface in many many places and gotten a good reaction. But if I had to choose and pick a favorite, it's definitely being a heel, just because it's natural. I got that natural vibe that you know, I want to be a prick. And it's fun pissing people off. It's
I
just
totally
fun.
agree, man.
Yeah.
Being a heel is fun as hell,
Yes.
and you sell more merchandise, in my opinion, too.
Yeah, it all depends where you're at. Sometimes you go to places that people love the heels. They love
So,
to boo the heels.
how do you deal with those rookies that you wrestle that want to do all these spots in a match? What do you say to them?
Less means more. To me, selling, timing, footwork, those things are more important as a professional wrestler, and also connection with the audience that you're performing in front of, because wrestling is for the people. You can't wrestle for yourself. You can't wrestle for other boys that are watching. You have to wrestle for the people that bought a ticket to see you. So in order for those people to continue to buy a ticket to see you, you have to make a connection. They got to care for you, and that's a thing that's missing nowadays. A lot of the guys just wrestle because they want to do their cool moves and 100 million spots in a match and not sell and not register. And people will cheer for that, but in reality, they're cheering for the moves. They probably cheering for a move that the guy on television does that you just did, but they're not caring for yourself. They're not caring for who you are. So to me, those guys that are doing 1,000,001 spots, I think they should focus on connecting with the audience, because once you have the audience in your pocket, you can sit in the middle of the ring and they're gonna cheer for you. And longevity. For you to last 20 years and at anything you do, you have to be healthy and be able to go. So if you're hurting yourself 2 3 years into this, you're not gonna make it anywhere.
So, speaking of hurting yourself, have you had any big injuries in your career?
Injuries. I've been lucky. I've had a separated shoulder, uh, busted nose, fingers. I mean, I've had like my lower back injured, but I've been lucky from like major surgeries, but definitely, I definitely feel those 25 years come into play sometimes. Rolling out of bed, it's catching up.
Your bum card is coming to a draw.
Yes, definitely. I feel that bump card where again, less means more, and I could fill in those blanks with other things, like I said, connecting with the audience, making what you do count and stand out. So if you're doing one punch, make that punch look like $1 million so people could care for it. Uh, that's what to me is the art of pro wrestling.
So piggybacking on that, what do you say to those people that think wrestling is fake?
Fake has always been a word that pisses me off, man, because and it used to piss me off a lot back in the day when I was young and I was starting and stuff like that. I would get into fights, bro. Uh, people calling wrestling fake. I mean, what we do is entertainment, is choreographed, but at the same time, games got playbooks, and it doesn't mean that play that you run is going to work. Same thing happens here. You have to train. You have to be an athlete. You do get hurt. You can't cheat. You can't cheat adrenaline. You can't cheat when you're flying through the air or you're taking bumps. You just can't. So when you land on that mat, it hurts and it takes a toll on your body. So it's just crazy to have people still think that what we do doesn't hurt you at all. Like it's just common sense, man.
My 2 cents on that is if you think it's fake, get in the ring. I bet you won't last one day.
Yeah, that's what it is with people. But it's a battle that I gave up on trying to argue, because you're always gonna have those know-it-alls on the nowadays on the computer or the internet or and stuff like that. But definitely, wrestling takes a toll on your body, and the years of bumps and bruises, it'll definitely catch up with you. And I don't think you'll leave pro wrestling without remembering the years that you've been in it. Physically at least.
100% facts, my friend.
Yes.
One last question for you, Mr. Don Vega, because I know you're a busy guy. You got to get back to training. If there's one thing you wish you knew before you started wrestling, what would that be?
Damn, that's a good question, bro. I've done some podcasts. They never asked me that, so kudos to you. That's a good question. I wish I would have known that there's a lot of selfish people in the wrestling business, and sometimes you just have to look out for yourself right from the bat. If I would have known that, I think that would have helped me greatly, because I came in not expecting certain things that I learned down the line. As far as people and people backstabbing and all that or whatnot, and just the favoritism and the clicks and all that type of gaga. But yeah, I wish I would have known that.
So where can our fans find you? Where can our fans find you on social media?
You can definitely follow me in Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff at Pun Don Vega. And on Facebook, you can follow me slash Punisher Don Vega, Facebook.com/ Punisher Don Vega, Pun Don Vega in Instagram and Twitter.
Are there any wrestling shows that you want to promote or anything like that?
Well, if you're in the Northeast area, if you're in Massachusetts, in September 12th, I'm going to be in Platinum Gaming in Taunton, Massachusetts. That's a 4 p.m. bell time. Also, September 18th, I'm going to be at the Attleboro Moose Lodge. That's a 7 p.m. bell time in Attleboro, Massachusetts. And for information on the upcoming events in the company that I'm working for right now, one of the companies that I'm working for is Showcase Pro Wrestling. You can find us at SP Wrestling on all social media, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff.
Mr. The Punisher Don Vega, we appreciate your time here on the Five Star Revolution podcast. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. For all you listeners, go over to Facebook right now, share and like our Facebook page, Five Star Revolution Podcast, $200 Visa gift card giveaway for one 1,000 likes. So share, 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 and subscribe to our YouTube page.
That's right, man. That's right. Share, get that to get that money. Ese dinero hay que cogerlo. And like I always say, guste o no te guste, 5 Star Revolution podcast, esa es la que hay.
Thank you, Mr. Don Vega. Have a great night, man.
Thank you, bro.